Someone left? Hi everybody, to another edition of Instagram Live. Again from our studio today, from a really small setup, because today we're going to be focusing on the quality of light. So thanks everybody for joining and coming in. We're just going to get the whole session started, so for everybody who's watching it on a review, it doesn't have to too long to make this happen. So when we talk about quality of light, right? That's a huge topic. And usually when we talk about quality of light, we just talk about color, right? And the color, I mean, of course, it's a really important part about light. Just think about it. Daylight produces serotonin in our bodies. It lets us feel, more alive, more awake. We can go into the day. When we go down into the evening and we go into, tungsten lights, it more and more goes into the melatonin that it produces in our bodies, gets us to sleep, right? So light has a big emotional impact on us. And just as I always mention, here at Lightbridge, we focus on the emotional quality of light. It's not about the product as the reflector, it's about actually what it can reproduce. And then it's actually not about what it can produce in light, it's about how it can make people feel. And I think that's the most important part of our job. What we're doing on set is creating feelings, right? So everything we're going to be talking about today is a little bit technical, but we're always going to break it down again to how you can use it on set, how you actually can make it work for you to create emotions you want to create. So again, color is super important. We talk about it a lot when we talk about quality of light. Again, the emotional quality of it is really important when we talk about colors, how it makes us feel, the warm light, the cool light. We even eat light in terms of vitamin D, through our skins. So it's just really important how the quality of light affects us. Just think about being in green light, when you go into apartments, you have the feeling, Jesus, everybody looks sick, It's not that great. So something that to really take care about. But here's the big but. It's not only about the color. Actually, the color is a really small portion of the whole thing that matters. There's a whole bigger world when we talk about quality of light that we need to look out for. So let's break it down into the main points. The first one is light distribution. So what does light distribution mean? That basically means you put up a soft light, for example, how it spreads, how the field of light is. Now, what we've always seen in the days now with the LEDs is it is a very clear, even field of light, right? It's very technical, it's very precise. One might even say it's not that human. It doesn't feel that alive. Why? Because something's missing. There's a complexity that we're missing in this really clear pattern of light. That's just basically missing. So I thought, because we have this old school lighting today, I'm trapped in between these flags, we've got some direct hard light into my face, let's stick to old school. And why? The reason is, in old school days, they didn't have all these diffusions because they needed every little inch of light they could get for the exposure film. So they were all about really mad and focused about where is the light coming from, where is it hitting, when you leave a light, when you come into a new light. So the quality of the light, the distribution of the light was at that point more important than ever. And these days, we're going back into this, and I think it's really exciting because it's not about the soft, big surfaces anymore. It's about how we can use hard light to create some great feelings. So let's have a look at this by actually taking a really old school light. So what we have over here is an RA Fresnel, 650 watts. So what's important about this light? First of all, it's got the Fresnel lens, right? The Fresnel lens basically engineered for lighthouses. It really gives you the chance to focus into floodlight. Great. So, but let's have a look at the inside, which is actually much more interesting for us. With the 650, and you open it up, what you see in here is the following. You see down here, you see the Fresnel light. Then over here, you see the bulb, the tungsten bulb, 650 watts. And back here, you've got the reflector. So the light's actually reflecting on the back side into the reflector and then coming out into the Fresnel. So on the back part here, we got the flood and spot, and we can turn it. But what actually happens and what makes it go flood and spot? What makes it go flood and spot is the following. You flood it. I hope I'm doing this right now. There you go. You flood it, and then you see how the light bulb and the reflector go all the way to the front. If the whole system is really close to the Fresnel, it floods it. And if I want to spot it, I take it far away. And you've guessed correctly. If you take a light source into our Cinematographers or Precision Reflectors, you go closer with the light source to the reflector, it's going to flood more. Take it further away, it's going to spot more. It all comes back to this basic terms of physics. But let's have a quick look at actually what this light looks like and why I think the light distribution of this is really interesting. So like our old tungsten, we turn it on. I'm going to leave frame for a second to show you the quality of the light. So if we look at this, okay, you see the hot spot here in the center, and now I flood it. Okay, so here's a flooded Fresnel, right? So when we close the barn doors, this is the hardest it's actually going to get. It's actually interesting. When you flood a light source and use the barn doors, the light source, it's actually going to be, the shadows are going to be sharper. And if you spot it, the shadows are going to be softer, just the way the light, you know, gets spotted. So, and if I go here to the center and I spot it, you see how the shadows on the side change, but you've got this little hot spot here in the middle. Now this is something, of course you've got more light here, but at the same time it creates a complexity in light. You've got down here not such hard light, you've got a really softer source, and in the middle here you've got this really hot spotty kind of a source here. So just think about actors moving through this. This is like going under a tree when the sun's shining. You've got more light, you've got less light, all this stuff that's going on. That kind of makes sense. There we go. So that's the complexity of the light, right? So that means you can flood it, you can spot it, you can create different things. And that's actually something that we always talk about with the reflectors. That you're going in there and you're saying you have a soft reflector and you're putting a harder one in the middle. So that complexity that we just saw from this light source here from this old 650 is something we can recreate now, use our LEDs, use our favorite light sources to do this. So this is actually a really cool and important thing. So I always look out for this. How can I do an additive element? That's a little bit of an artsy thing, but if you look at Kazimir Malevich, Russian painter, was always talking about the additive element. You have something, you like it, you're looking through the camera and thinking, what's missing? What's my additive element? What am I going to add into this to create even something more boom, right? Just give it something extra. And that's what creates the magic, and I think that really helps us, pushes us along. Okay, so basically, I showed the diagram before. There's different kinds of light sources. I mean, maybe let's just quickly go into this, because that's something you said about I read the comment over here that we're talking about the real basics. If you really break it down, to be honest, what light sources do we have? Just think about my finger being the light source. Maybe an LED, a tungsten, an HMI. There's two things that can happen. You put a diffusion in front, you diffuse it, or you don't do that and you put a reflector in the back. Or you put a reflector in the back, you put a diffusion in the front, or you replace the diffusion with a lens. And you know, honestly, that's it. That's all the light sources out there that we have. We've got flood systems just with reflectors. We've got diffuse systems with that. We can use different kinds of reflectors. We can use different kinds of lenses, but that's it. We're just always taking a light source and kind of playing around 360 degrees around it to create different things. So with all our different light sources out there, when you start to look at this, okay, it's Fresnel-based, okay, it's reflector-based, okay, it's lens-based. Suddenly, this flood of light sources out there, it becomes really simple again. And it also takes away all the hype about this or that light source. It comes back to the same thing. So that's about what I need to say about the distribution of light sources that you can get. There are really good Fresnels out there that actually give you a really great spot on the flood, like the Filex lights. There's great lens systems. Aperture's doing a great job, I think, with the 60s now. Of course, Scream Source with their lens systems as well. So there's different stuff out there right now that is taking the old techniques and just rehousing them, putting an LED in the background, and doing, of course, colors and all this stuff at the same time too. Okay, so here's the next thing. I talk about diffusion of the light sources, right, what we use. We talked about the distribution, hard and spot. Here comes the big but when it comes to that. The thing is, it really depends where this light source is. For example, right now, this light source is right on my face. So you don't really see that much of a shadow. Maybe a little bit here, and then there's my nose. You see in the background how it's coming up and down. But the quality of light that's really happening, you would only see if this light source moves to the side of me, right? Because then you really got shadows. Just think about lighting through a window and people moving in that space. That's when you really see the quality of the light. Then when you move around and you go to the back, again, let's turn it on. We set up a little kicker here from the back. And now we turn off the front light. Okay, now we got a backlight, right? And it's also really interesting that as soon as you put a light at the back, honestly, it's always going to look almost the same, especially with my bald head. It's just going to be a hard specular spot over here. and then the light's going to come down from the back. So it's more about how much spread you need. Is the camera going to move to the side? Okay, of course, then again it matters. But if it's just a kicker from the back, this is not a sales show, so it doesn't really matter if it's a reflector or if it's a direct light source. The only time actually it does matter is if Louisa would pan up, then we can show you. Louisa is with us today. Hi, Louisa. Is that if you don't want to have cables up there, if you don't have a lot of space, the reflector can be a great thing just to quickly mount it up there. It's lightweight and easy, and you can get it down. That's the only reason why, honestly, my humble opinion is to put a reflector as a kicker in the background, because you don't have enough space or you don't want to put anything into the way of that. And that's that. Other than that, you could just put a light source up there as well. So here's the thing. So you have a light source coming here from the back, a little bit old school too, right? The light coming from the back. We've got the front light, feels like all of those film noir movies. But the cool thing is when I now take my pieces of paper and I put them close to me, I'm catching the light that's coming from the back and I'm reflecting it back into the face, right? Okay, so what's happening here with quality? Because we're only talking about direct light sources up until now. All of a sudden what happens is the light comes from the back, bounces off the piece of paper, and it comes back into my face. So that means I'm actually adding something, and I do call this the DNA of light. If sunlight comes into a room, it bounces off the warm wooden floor, it comes back into the face. I'm taking like a golden reflector here, trying to mimic this a little bit. I'm getting back a little bit of golden light into my face. That's the DNA of light. Light travels. That's a perfect 5600 Kelvin light source. It comes down here, but as soon as I'm reflecting off a colorful surface, it will take on that color and go back into the face. That's a really cool thing, because I just can say just golden, I can say golden plus a little bit of fill of putting something white there, or I just can go white. So simple. I haven't done anything except giving the actor, the book he's reading, some white pieces of paper into the book or a golden piece of paper into the book. It's that simple. Same thing when it bounces off the floors, it bounces off the wall. Also depends which clothing you're wearing. Obviously, because I've got on a little bit something greenish is going to come back into my face. It's the added DNA of light. And that's where it basically comes from. So I think that's something that really helps to create a natural quality of light, because you're adding different light sources. Same thing like sunlight and sky. You want to have the blue and the warm in combination to make it look right. Okay, so we've talked about the directions. We talked about the backlight and really front lit light. The quality doesn't matter that much as when it's from the side, and you will see the shadow rendering. So that's something we should quickly talk about, because when we say, how is the shadow? Is it soft? Is it hard? Where do you look? If you look into the center of the light, it's bright. If you look onto where the light stops, it's dark. So the really interesting thing is right in the middle, the gradient. How is the gradient from light to dark? And that's where you decide how soft it is, how diffused it is, how rapid it is, how much the light wraps around. That's where the quality of light comes in, with all the complexity of holding, for example, a piece of paper in my face. So just to sum it up, maybe you can turn the light again, please. Got to show off my pieces of paper I printed out. So here, one of my favorite new apps, Mind Journey. It's one of those, artificial intelligence pictures. And I just typed in there, what's the DNA of light? And that's what it showed me. So I think that's kind of cool what we can do these days now with artificial intelligence. It's really going to push us in the right direction. Okay, so we talked about natural looking light, and that actually has a lot to do with the complexity of colors again. So there's one other thing that we need to talk about when it comes to that. And we talk about this a lot when we talk about reflected light. It's about distance, right? Again, artificial intelligence, the distance of light, that came up when I put it in. And down below, I'm not going to bore you with physics, but it has a lot to do with the inverse square law. So what do we need to know about this stuff, right? I'm not a physician. I'm honestly not even that good in math, so I have no idea how to calculate this, and I don't care. Why? I care about how it looks. I care about how it feels. That's our focus. That's what we get paid for day after day, and we can build a career in that. Not that we can calculate the inverse square law. Helps sometimes with apps that can really help us these days. So here's the thing. It's all about the distance of light, right? How far is it away? Why do we think this looks natural? It's really simple. The sun's far away. It's the only reference we have. We go to outside, we stand in the sun, we say, oh, it feels so wonderful today. It's warm, it's a beautiful day. It feels wonderful. And then when we try to recreate this, how do we recreate this feeling? Somebody's walking in a studio, out of the door outside. How does it feel that it looks like a beautiful sunny day? It has to be really far away, that light, right? And sometimes That's not that simple to put a light far away because we don't have the space. We've got our restrictions, like old school when we had all the flags and stuff on set. So what's new school and what can we do now? Actually, what's a trick that we can use to enhance the distance to give us a more natural feeling of light that feels further away? And for anybody who's interested in the inverse square law, I'll just say, if your light source is not far away and an actor moves towards the light source, it's going to get brighter and brighter. It's going to feel like a cheat. Oh, they put a light source there. That's not the sun there, because you can walk all over Vienna. It's going to be the same exposure. Same in Mexico, same in Los Angeles. Yeah, sun's really far away and the Earth is really tiny compared to it. So here it is. We have to put the light source really far away to make it look natural. So got a little trick today. Louise is the master of the fog machine. We're going to turn on the fog machine. And once again, just until the fog comes in, I will just mention again, I'm so happy to be here for all of you, and that this is interesting what I have to say. It's the pleasure of my life to do that. So if you have any questions, just please ask them. I've got the feed up there, so I hopefully won't miss any of the questions that have been coming up. Okay, Louisa, we'll fog it a little bit more, and then off we go. Really old school today. It's actually a cool technique. If you really diffuse the fog in a room, it gives you fill. You won't see it in the camera, a lot like me now. Feels like we're smoking a lot of cigarettes out there still, but that's the reason she's waving the flag to make sure that the light's diffusing a little bit more. And there we go. So here we go. A laser you will not be able to buy in the normal stores, but it looks really cool. Okay, there we go. So here's our laser, right? So single ray of light beam, right? That's what it is. This is what a single ray of beam is. That's what we took to engineer the surfaces for reflectors. We thought that each ray of light will hit the reflector and what will happen with it going from there. So that's what we're talking about. So if you consider this being our set, it's our small set today, right? We got our light source is not that small, and we're lighting, I'm already hitting the back wall. This is all the distance we can do. These, 30 centimeters or whatever it is, 1.5 inches or something like that. Is that all the distance that we have actually? So if I set this up here, it's like, okay, this is all we can do. This is it, right? So there's a trick. The trick's much older than the Lightbridge has been around. We're going to use a mirror. That's the reason we did diffusion 0. It's less weight and it won't shatter on you. You can use a real mirror as well, or you can use our diffusion 0. So the thing is, don't put your light source on top. Put it down below. Light straight up. Take your mirror and boom. Take the light over here. You see what happens? I have the distance of my light source. I'm going direct. Exactly here, I'm placing the reflector. I'm putting the light source down below on the floor, and I'm lighting over. I'm doubling my distance. And with our reflectors only having 3% light loss, you won't feel that light loss as much. So all of a sudden, on a small space, you can double your distance. That means your actors can move double distance as well for that instance. Maybe we need a little bit more fog, huh? Okay, so there we go. So there we go. So there's one other, let's see something. I love when fog comes in. Look at this. I'm just going to stare like that because it's geeky. So there we go. Oh, boom. Very excellent. More. Okay, so there we go. So there's one other thing, right? So if I have a light source here and I have the reflector here, I can pan the reflector and make our light source move. Just like that, from 1A to the 1. But you see how the ingoing angle changes to the outgoing angle. So it doesn't feel that I'm panning a light source. It feels like I'm moving a light source. So instead of me being here, I'm going from all the way over here and I'm moving the light source all over here. I'm moving back over here. I'm doing the same thing now with the reflector. Because, it really actually feels, right? When I'm hitting the reflector, it doesn't feel like the light source is coming from there. It feels like it's further away. That's what happens. So that means instead of moving a light source, you just can pan a reflector to get a very similar result. You can let your actors move in double distance. And the other thing is you can keep your reflectors really close to set. That's where they're easy accessible. And you keep your light source down below. So all of a sudden your workflow is going to be easier at the same time too. But actually we were looking for the quality of light. But all of a sudden it really helps all the technicians because they just have to pan a reflector around. And you get more chance to play around and try around. Okay, so here's the thing, right? Playing around and trying around. Let's actually have a look at this. in a real little miniature set what a laser beam does, so we get a little bit more feeling of actually how we can use this. So let's go to the next phase here. We're going to take out the flag. Thank you very much. I'm going to help over here at the same time too. I would love to play some music at some time to, you know, just entertain. We need a show animal coming in between. So there we go. Okay, perfect. So there we go. Louise is going to check the frame. Yeah, we don't need the fog anymore. Perfect. Okay, point this in here. Very good. Okay, here we go. Our little miniature set, our Vienna coffee house. We have our laser down here, and it's lighting up, and we've got a window over here. So we have our heavy light source down below, and now we're going to be lighting into the window. So now look at this. Okay, let me see if this house changed. There we go. So I'm pointing in, and because my reflector is so close to the window, I can pan it around, and I actually can give you any position you want because I'm panning it around. And I'm not having to move my light source around. So this is a big advantage. You can actually still look out of the window at the same time. I'm using diffusion 0, color code gray, just to give you a feeling that I'm taking this really punchy light source and moving it around in the room. Now, why we're doing this as a laser today, because I want to show off how high quality actually these reflectors are and what actually really happens with diffusing them. But Louisa, could you turn off the light? I think that's going to help. So there we go. Okay, once again, boom. I'm panning it around. Here goes the laser. I'm panning a single light beam around in the room, all positions possible, and you can look out of the window at the same time. Okay, so we go to the next one. I need a little bit of light. There we go. Diffusion number 2, diffusion number 1. Okay, so diffusion number 1, you already see how the hot spot in the middle is getting a little bit bigger. And I'm panning it around. I can get any position I want. Hard little spot, like heavy spot of sunlight. That's what it would look like. Okay, now we go to diffusion number 2. And now we're going to see what happens. See how it's starting to diffuse? How one laser beam coming up from there suddenly is giving you such a soft light all of a sudden. Isn't that incredible? That's just the engineering of the surfaces. So we created the surfaces to really give you the quality and the diffusion of light without having to add layers and layers. So you don't have to add a light source, some diffusion in front of it, then put a frame, then put the flags. Everything's engineered into one surface, and you see how controllable it is, right? I can pan this around all the time around. I can get any position I need. Now we can go even further than that. We can go to diffusion number 3. See how soft it's getting? The whole light diffusion, there's nothing specular about it anymore. It becomes one controllable, beautiful, soft light source. That's just the way they are engineered. So this is a trick coming from the old mirror days that we now have enhanced, that you actually have the added diffusion into this. So just think about just having to move all the flags and frames around or soft boxes to make this work. Then we can go to diffusion number 4. And that's already super white, so it's going to get super diffused on us, right? The whole thing's already diffusing. It's very close to our standard whites already. So we got the full range from a real mirror all the way to super white in this whole thing, so we get the full control of light. And you can see how the quality of light changes, how the emotions change, because actually, let's see if I can't do this now with one laser beam. You could, if this would be a light source and would be a wider, stream of light, I could actually borrow a second reflector, some light, and add some hardened spot into it. So we actually can go from there. Okay, so this is really next version stuff. I just wanted to show this to you to give you a feeling of how easy it is to create emotions with the quality of light. So we're combining diffusion right now. We're combining the size of the reflector and the position of it, because now lighting in through a room like that, it's actually, just to go back to a different reflector, it's actually giving us really different kinds of moods, and people are walking in it. So side lit like this, it's always going to be really important to have a good quality light source. Well, you're looking for the light source, because what is quality? Quality is the emotion you want to create. It can be done with a really old light source, can be done with a really new light source, with reflectors or without. It's just up to what you need to create. Okay, but I think we can have more fun looking at a real face. Martina is joining us today, so we actually get a chance to look at a face, see how the skin tones is, because at the end of the day, what's it all about? We're trying to show human emotions, right? So we need humans for this. Okay, perfect. This goes on. We're going to take out this. And then we're going to go out. And if any questions come up so far, just let me know. Okay, there we go. So, hi Martina. There we go. Perfect. So I'll take this out, walking in front of the camera. There we go. So Martina still has the same hard light that I had in my face. We're going to change that in a second because that was just basically our working light, right? Okay, so here we go. Martina, feel comfortable, feel at home. It's us and a lot of friends. So I'm putting this away too, so we just gain a little bit more space to work. Okay. We don't have any behind the scenes camera, but to be honest, it's boring today. So there we go. Okay. So great. So what I first want to do is we have here, I'll go back to diffusion 0. So just for everybody, guys, maybe I actually can show this to you. Let me see. So can you actually... okay, so I'm not sure if I can show this now, but basically we have a light source, a Felix Q5, and we're going up straight into a reflector. Can you show this? Let me see. Okay, so here's the Felix. It's all mounted on one stand, so it's easy and movable. And then we're just going up into reflectors. Please be aware of our beautiful fingerprints. We will clean after we finish wrapping today. So, okay, there we go. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pan away the diffusion 2. So, I'm going to come closer with the light source so we get a chance to really see Martina's face. Okay, and now we show Martina again. Perfect. And now I'm going to use the diffusion 0. Take the light off the Q5 and light it to the face. So here is the major thing for me when it comes to quality of light, where all of these things that we've talked about except color come into play, because it all comes down to the feathering of light. What does that mean? That means actually how it's cutting on the face. You see how hard this cut is? This is because it's a diffusion 0. It's like a real mirror. It's a really hard cut of light. But it's cool too. You see how I actually can bounce some light off her blouse, and I can take it up a little bit into the face and can take it to the sides. So we actually can do a lot of tricks with this just by panning around the light source. So why is this important? Let me show this to you. Can I give this to you, Lucy? So I'm just going to sneak up behind you. Okay, so, bin ihr gut? We're improvising now. I had an idea. I have to show this. So, okay. So we have a light source here, a reflector, right? And if I'm panning it around, and my light source is down here, brauchen wir Licht, huh? Okay. Okay, wow, today's improvisation day. So we have a light source here, right? A reflector here. We have a light source down below. So basically, I'm going up and reflecting. We looked at that with the laser, right? So as soon as I pan the reflector, what actually is happening, because virtually my light source is up here, I'm moving the light source around. So it's not just taking a flag and saying, or a light source and panning it down. When I pan on the reflector, I'm actually moving the reflector. I'm moving the light source virtually on the top. So we looked at that with the laser. Laser goes in, laser comes out. But because we double the distance and you look into a mirror, it actually feels like, you know, you look into your face that's actually behind the wall. Same thing with the light source. Comes in, it feels up here, and then I pan it around, and that starts moving on us. That's basically what happens. So what does that mean, and why am I showing this to you? Kind of clumsy today. That is because, swap. Okay, there we go. Because if I'm starting now to move the reflector, you see how it looks like it's actually a light source, like a light bulb is just dangling above her head? That is because I'm showing you this here in frame. This is the reflector. I'm going like this, right? This is what I'm doing. And actually, see how the shadow's moving? Isn't that crazy? That is because virtually the light source is moving. So moving a reflector, using this as your key light, also means in complexity, not just panning it in and out, it means moving your light source, changing the shadow, all off the tip of your fingers. So it becomes like super intuitive. And this is where the quality of light is, the cut. Do we want a hard cut? Yes, maybe we really want a hard cut, because what we really love is the light that's coming back off her blouse. See the beautiful, how the chin and how the nose comes up, just to bounce off the white, that's it. And I say, it's okay, but we want a little bit more in the face. I start panning it up. and suddenly it looks more like sunlight coming in, right? I'm on the back wall. Obviously, I can take that off too, because again, I am just moving the light source. So I can really recommend, just take it into your hand and play around with it. Try to find what you like. There you go. Not on the eyes, more on the eyes, just on the shoulder, or maybe just off the wall. I'm just pushing it off the wall. We get some light back too. So we've got a lot of intuitive control by using the reflector, because again, just as a reminder, we're not just moving a reflector around, we're virtually actually panning a light source around 4 feet up in the air. But I am just doing this by moving around with the light source. Okay, so this is diffusion 0. Let's jump to diffusion number 2. We looked at the diffusions the last time, so no need to do that. What we're focusing on today, again, is the quality of light. So again, it's about the feathering of light. How is the difference between full light, see that's flat, or no light, bouncing off the wall? Where exactly is the sweet spot? And can you see with diffusion 2 already, compared to diffusion 0, how soft the feathering becomes? How really intuitive. It's not just anymore, oh, I need light off the blouse. Sure, you still can do this. But at the same time, you can say, now just a little bit more light here in the face. And let's try something. Martina, can you stand up and sit down? Okay, wait, give me a second. Just stand for a moment. Okay, there you go. So I'm going to go like this. Okay, now sit down. See how it looks like? It's not somebody's going in and out of a light. It feels like there's one beautiful thing, how it goes together. Okay, question came from Hannes. We'll go back into this into a second. Okay, there we go. So here we go again. Really important. The diffusion has a lot to do with the feathering. So how we go in and out. Okay, so I can go to the side. I can pan it down too. So we just can go from the side lid exactly at the same time too. Now we can take it in. This is where the diffusion comes in and really starts to help us. Okay. Great. So now we looked at that. Now let's look at the kicker again from the back. Let's add that. So now we got a kicker from the back, and actually I just can take, if I want, some light off that kicker. Take it and put it back into the face. And you see how soft this becomes, because I'm taking one level of diffusion, diffusion 2 as a kicker, and taking a second diffusion 2 now as a fill back. And you see how lovely this works? It's just such a soft thing, because the light is traveling so far right now, and it doesn't feel like, oh, this is scary, it's from underneath. Of course, you could go under here too, and you could do this too. But take it a little bit back. Take it a little bit to the side. Those nuances are going to make all the difference. There we go. Super. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go into one thing now. The question from Hannes that came up, and we're going to talk about this. Thank you so much. We'll bring you back in a second. I'll quickly come in and jump in. Thanks. Super. Okay, so here's the thing, Lucy. We're going to have to improvise this because of the topic from Hannes that came up. Okay, one easy question that came up first. What's the size that is required to light a 10 by feet room from inside a room? So that is the standard law of saying what is the diffusion of the reflector. How much it diffuses, like diffusion 4 super white, is going to be almost 180 degrees. So you can take a really small reflector and basically the whole room's lit. Of course, it's a small reflector, so basically it's still going to give you a hard shadow. And that's a question that Hannes came up with that I think we should go into now, because it's really important and very good question is what is soft light? And what is the difference between the diffusions, and why does it still create a hard shadow, and how does this stuff work together? So, Louise, if I could ask you, can you give me the diffusion 0? And bring me a diffusion 1 and 2, can also be a 25. So, okay, here what we have is a diffusion 0. So I'm showing you basically my little cheat notes I have over here. And you can see it's actually like a real mirror, right? You actually can see the lens from the iPad, right? Back there. Okay, so that's like a real mirror. It looks like you're looking into the room. So from the lens, and you can see the lens back, it looks like the camera is behind the reflector, right? Actually, it's the same distance. Lamp to, in this case, iPad to reflector, and then behind the reflector. So it really feels one-to-one. There is no diffusion. This is exactly what it is. Okay, so now let's have a look at diffusion number 1. Okay, this is, we always have these color codes up here, so you can easily see that. Okay, I need to take care of not making too many. All right, so if you look at diffusion number 1, you already can see a big difference here. You actually still can see the room, right? But at the same time, it feels like, I always say, like it's a Hampshire frost in front. So you already have the feeling there's a certain level of diffusion in front of it, like it's not cleaned, or it's just slightly diffused, right? But you still can see everything behind. So this light source, in this case, again, our iPad, that's same distance behind the reflector, is going to be a little bit softer because we're actually taking the light and diffusing it to the first level. So the cool thing is we took a mirror, we took a frame, and we're all compressing into such a small little surface. The key light that we're using a Filex Q5 right now. That's what we're using here. Okay, so this is diffusion number 1, right? So you still can see yourself, but you already have this added level of diffusion with it. So now we go to diffusion number 2, which I have here. Oppa. So diffusion number 2 already is already a different beast. Again, color code blue on the back. And then when you look inside, you already can see, still can see the iPad. You can see Louisa maybe and myself are back in the monitor. But it's already very diffused and very far away. So you still have the feeling of the light source. But again, it is already getting so heavily diffused that you can't see any details anymore. So in our case, that would mean use a light source like a par can or a light source that has multiple shadows. Going to diffusion 2, those multiple light sources will diffuse within the surface of this one, diffusion level that we put in here. Diffuses it, it's going to become softer. So here's where the trick starts. So the thing is, when we talk about soft light, right, we always think about it's beautiful, it's wrappy, it doesn't create any shadows. So the thing is, the problem is the word diffused. Because, the word is soft. Soft is the issue. Why? Because soft light takes 2 words to make it work. It takes diffusion and it takes size. It takes diffusion level to diffuse the light, to give it a bigger spread, what diffusion number 2 is doing right here. But at the same time, it needs surface. Because just think about it. You have a white board here in front of your face. And just sit where the actors, where the talents are sitting. And just see how big the white is wrapping around from the bright side, where you're keying, all the way to the darker side. So by taking a white here, it actually is wrapping from the bright side into the darker side. So that's the reason it feels so much softer, because you are bringing light into the shadow. And you're lifting the shadows. That's the reason you don't see the shadows. They're there. It's diffusion number 2. You would see it. But because of the size of the reflector, it is that close to me, so it feels like a big reflector. It's going to wrap around a little bit onto the dark side. The more diffused the surface, the more wrappier it becomes. But take this 50 by 50 centimeter reflector that feels really close to me over here, and go back to the end of the room. It looks like a small reflector. And all of a sudden, you're going to have a hard shadow. And it's not wrapping around anymore. Of course not, because the surface that's going from bright into dark is missing, because the small little piece that's all the way in the back. That's the reason that we say soft light means big. But actually it means soft light means how close can you come with the surface that you have. Because the closer you're going to come, the less big it's going to have to be. And that's the trick right there with the reflectors as well, because you can put your light source far away into the reflector, but keep your reflector close. That's the reason it feels so much softer, much more voluminous than having a big diffusion frame outside in front of a wall. There's one other thing with the DNA of light. If you're using the most of your inverse square law, you're bouncing off the floor, off the walls, this will also be filling into your shadows, making it look much softer. I hope this answers the question. Cool. Let's look at diffusion number 3, just to make sure that we also did that covered. So we had diffusion number 2, and I'll just show this again. There you go. Everything, you see a light source, but this is about it. And diffusion number 3, 4 is like white. I don't even have to show you that. Yeah, that's fine. So diffusion number 3, also aluminum surface. You already can see there is almost, you can't see an iPad anymore. It has become that soft. This also means, without becoming too technical, the more diffused the surface is, the less you're going to feel the inverse square law work for you. Because obviously if there's a whiteboard here and you walk close to it, it's going to feel you're walking close to the whiteboard. So the more diffuse the surfaces are, the less you're going to have the feeling of it the farther it is away. I think if I'm understanding the question correct, is the Q5 from Philex the same thing like the tungsten lighting? The technique basically is the same. It is a cob, there is an LED, and it's moving back and front. Actually, in this case of the Philex, it's moving the Fresnel away and closer to the LED, but obviously technically a lot has changed just by the nature of what the LED needs. But the technique is still the same, and I think they're very close to the quality what the tungsten did in terms of light quality. In terms of color qualities, as much as I love all the brands, nothing's as close to real tungsten yet as it is to use real tungsten. So especially on skin tones, if you need that rich quality, there's nothing better than a burning bulb to make it work. Okay, so much for that. We looked at the qualities, we looked at the faces. Any questions that we can help with? Anything out there that came up that could make sense to have a look at? Can you scroll up and down if any questions came up that you saw that I maybe missed? Oh, so we're just trying to check out any question that did come up. Give me a second. Ich glaube, es sind da Fragen gestanden. Gell? Na, das war noch nichts. Okay. Okay, I'm just in the back here. Sorry, guys, to figure out if any questions come up. Thanks so much. Yeah, we love diffusion number 2. Do you know where the key light is? Yeah, we got that covered. Yeah, we got that covered. Okay, I mean, if no other questions are coming up, then what we were talking about now, I hope Hannes that explained the answer to the difference between the size and the diffusion. Which light source? Okay, here come the questions. What ones do you suggest to create moonlight effects? Diffusion number 2. You're outside, you're high up. Diffusion 2 will not have the problems that are like wind and stuff when you use diffusion number 2. So definitely use that. I do the live streams once a month. So every month we do a live stream. You can tell me what you want me to talk about, and then we'll talk about it. I was a gaffer for a long time. Now then I started the Lightbridge. And it's just a pleasure to be talking to all of you. Yes, you can visit us at the Lightbridge. We've got very good coffee here. Just send us an email. We can figure out a date. How do we make them? Excellent question. So that's the reason we do. Mirrors are usually glass, right? And the perfection of the way glass is done with the glass protection, we do it actually the opposite way. We take aluminum, it gets rolled out, and within the rolling process, there is already in there the engineered designed surface to give you the level of diffusion, and then we add hyper reflection and a special coating to give you color consistency, because there's no shift in colors with the reflectors. Everything we do is a professional key light system, so that means you will get 100% what you put in. So that's the way we've done that. Obviously, because it is aluminum, you need to take care, clean them at the end of the day when you're shooting near the ocean, clean them afterwards too. You're going to have a happy and long life. And for all the rentals out there, we do have special programs so you can replace the surfaces like HMI bulbs at support.thelightbridge.com. Yeah, so much for that. Let us know if you've got questions. Dani always asks as well. She's running the social media, so she will ask if any questions come up you want me to talk about. I hope this was interesting and made sense. Love the book light you showed us when lighting the cake. Live your knowledge. Thanks for sharing. Hey, it's really my pleasure. Look, it's just fun to do that, and I think no, it's just fun to do this. Thanks so much, and love that. When you want to do, we can do again. But yeah, actually, there was a request again to do tabletop work. We obviously could do that again too for that if you want to. What's the light loss and amount of diffusion? That's the cool thing, right? Only 3%. So you almost don't feel it. Why? Because we don't put anything of the way of the light. We're so used to getting a diffusion frame, having to push all the light through it. Obviously there's a light loss. With reflecting with the aluminum surfaces, only 3% light loss. And that's it. Isopropanol, please, yes. Isopropanol is the best way to clean the reflectors. That's the way to do it when they're really dirty. If you just got some fingerprints on them like me right now, just take one of the microfleece cloths we give you, then we just clean them down with your breath. Now post-COVID it's possible again, luckily. And then if that doesn't work, isopropanol or nothing else, please. No acidity, that should be on there. Yeah, please let us know for any questions, all the stuff that interests you out there. I'm willing to share everything I know about everything I don't know. I'm always happy to bring on guests, and I hope to do that again this year too at some point. We'll see what comes up. We're going to be at LA again at Cinegear, so you can visit us there. We're going to do workshops. We are trying to do more regular workshops in New York as well. And and that is that. So thanks, guys. Thanks so much again, everybody, for watching. I'm very proud and happy to be here for all of you. And I wish you a healthy day. I wish you a wonderful night. And have a good shooting day. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.